because we are able to continue. We didn't quite finish some of the things we wanted to talk about with Brian Kloss, who is with us. Brian, of course, a neutral arbiter, mediator, and attorney at Kloss ADR Inc., located in Park Ridge, Illinois, and America's Heroes Group advisory board member. Been with us, has done some great things with us. Also, you just heard, and his background, my goodness, Brent G. Filbert, retired 30-year U.S. Navy veteran and clinical director for Mizzou Veterans Clinic of the University of Missouri School of Law. When you talk about people who have done some things with their lives, it's just a great thing. And this discussion, of course, is serving disabled veterans in rural areas in America. And it's great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being able to continue with us. There were some people who had some things they wanted to say. So we certainly just want you to know that we appreciate you taking the time. All right? And, it's such a great thing. Brian, why don't you help us here?
Of course.
Yeah, go back.
Thank you, Cliff.
Yeah.
Handing over the mic to a lawyer. I don't know, Cliff. You're a much wiser man than that, Cliff.
Oh, that's funny.
But we us lawyers, we love hearing ourselves talk. So I would like to take the opportunity to talk a little more with Brent about an important issue that he started talking about, and that's the issue of discharge upgrades. And Cliff, if I think about the stupid you-know-what that I did when I was 19, 20, that we all did, and
right.
Thank God there wasn't, police coverage or parents or neighbors who knew our parents. And we managed to come out okay. But for other people who get caught up in some bad decisions, and then they get dumped out of the service, ill or injured, and with no ability to get treatment, to get into the system that can help them. Because we all know that once you get into the VA healthcare, it's pretty darn good. They have patient satisfaction rates over 90%.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind, could you talk us a little about the process? Because we've all heard these vets who said, "Oh yeah, I just signed this paperwork, and they told me after 6 months my discharge would be upgraded to honorable automatically," and we've all heard this baloney, and vets and these young service members believe it.
Right, that's exactly right. I've heard that story many, many times. Right. So the process is one that is, I would say, it in some ways like the VA disability compensation process. It can be overwhelming to service members to apply for a discharge upgrade on their own because knowing the right information to put in order for these, there are boards that are set up for each of the services. They're called discharge review boards for Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And then above that is a board really that you can appeal to or go to if you've been out for an extended period of time. So you have to submit applications with supporting evidence to these boards, and they decide if your discharge should be upgraded. And really, the one of the overriding things that is a problem for these veterans, for many of these veterans, is the reason that they got in trouble in the military. Let's say, like I said, they got in a fight, they smoked pot or whatever. Is for many of them, they were in combat and saw things and did things that had an effect on them. And they were already having issues with post-traumatic stress disorder, or maybe they have traumatic brain injury or whatever. And it's directly related to trouble they get into. They start acting up because of these issues. Or maybe let's say you have somebody who's a victim of sexual trauma in the military, same thing, or sexual harassment. So they get in trouble because of things that happened to them in the service, and then they get kicked out, and now they're out with these issues, and they have to apply for a discharge upgrade. And if you don't know the right information to put in about your condition, your diagnoses, or maybe having an expert or something like that provide the right opinion, it can be a disheartening process. And as I said earlier, the Department of Defense has done a better job in the last few years of recognizing those issues and made it easier for a discharge to be granted. It used to be that the success rates was like 1%. Now it's significantly higher for veterans who can show that they have these issues. So I'll give you, and as Brian said, I'm a lawyer, so I love to talk. So I just give you an example of one of the cases we had. We had a Vietnam veteran who was on patrol in Vietnam and in the jungle. He'd been there for many, many days, and he was shot in the leg by a sniper. And as he's falling backwards, and he looks up and sees the sniper in the tree, he kills the sniper, of course, saving the lives of many people in his unit.
Sure. But
he has this serious leg injury. He gets medevaced out, immediately starts having issues regarding what was later diagnosed as severe PTSD. And then he gets in trouble and gets kicked out, even though he has this very serious leg injury, has all these mental health issues. And so for the next 30, 35 years, he gets nothing from the VA. He's under this complete cloud in his life about his service. But we took that case, we applied for a discharge upgrade, showed that he had mental health issues related to what had happened to him, and he went from an other than honorable to a full honorable discharge. And this was the most important, well, not the most important, but very important to him. This particular veteran was also given a couple of medals that he didn't know that he was entitled to for valor, for what had happened. So he went from not wanting to talk about his service to wanting, to being so proud of what had happened. Plus, he then, within a month or two, was rated 100% disabled by the VA for his PTSD. So that's
great.
That's how dramatic it can be. Yeah. So it's a great story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Brent, where should a veteran with bad papers start?
So, in the VA disability compensation process, there are these veteran service officers who can help file initial claims. That's what I used when I filed for disability. But for discharge upgrades, VSOs really don't do those sorts of claims very much, and that's not really their expertise. So I encourage any veteran who has a bad piece of paper to get in touch with a law clinic like the one at Mizzou, or there's many throughout the country at law schools and other places, to have an attorney assist them in that process. If that doesn't happen, the chances that the veteran is going to be able to really put it all together in a compelling way, it may happen, but they just have a much, much better chance if they have a lawyer on their side who knows how to put it all together, and also maybe can get an expert opinion from, let's say, a psychologist or some other mental health expert, or whatever the issue is, that can be extremely helpful to getting the board to agree that the discharge should be upgraded.
What type of paperwork should a veteran be assembling before they consult with one of the various law school veterans clinics?
That's a great question. So what I would say is the veteran should request their military records, which you can go online and do that. So you try and get a complete set of your official military personnel file. Try to get all of your military service records, military medical service records as well. And then if they are being treated for some particular condition, let's say it's PTSD, then any records from private providers who are treating them for those conditions. If they can get those assembled, or at least start that process before they go and meet with an attorney, it really helps because it speeds up the process a lot. Now, at the law clinic at Mizzou, we will assist in getting those records if need be, but it's much better if the veteran already has those records at the time that they start the process.
Is this something a VSO can assist with, at least in ordering those records? Because I'm thinking of somebody who could be ill or injured or elderly and maybe don't have the facilities or the equipment or even the knowledge. I mean, where do they go online to get this stuff?
Right. So, VSO can help with that, definitely, because VSOs do that in trying to get the disability claims application filed. So they know how to where to send the request and what forms to use and all of that. So that is a great place to start, is with the VSO. And then, I mean, really, as far as requesting your military service record, if you go online and the National Personnel Records Center has a process online to request your OMPF. That's not really that difficult. I will say sometimes, though, when you get the OMPF, it's not a complete one. You get sort of a selected set of records from NPRC, which I'm not sure why they do that exactly, but they do. So that's why also, having either the VSO or you have an attorney at at the veterans clinics assisting you, they would immediately recognize that that's not a complete set of your service records.
Interesting.
Okay, so the VA also has a process whereby you can apply for VA benefits and ask them to just basically ignore any bad paper you have and recharacterize your discharge strictly for the purposes of benefits. Is that something that a vet with bad paper should be doing, regardless of whether they appeal, whether they're trying to get their discharge upgraded?
So that's a really good question, Brian. Absolutely. So there is two processes, and so when I teach the veterans law class at the law school, I always make sure that the students know, okay, what world are we in? Are we in the DOD world or discharge upgrade, or are we in the VA world? In the VA world, there is this process called a discharge review, and you can submit an application to the VA asking them to consider your service to essentially be honorable for purposes of VA benefits. And a VSO can assist you in that process and getting that submitted. And so what I like to do with our clients is typically to file both simultaneously, so you get both processes started. Sometimes the VA can be quicker than the DOD in reviewing the application and reaching a decision. That doesn't mean you're going to get a good decision, and often the decision doesn't go in favor of the veteran, but at least you can get the process started and get the application filed. And sometimes they do come back with a favorable decision. So I'll give you an example of a veteran that we're assisting now who, with the assistance of a VSO, before we ever got involved in his case, he had served 6 tours, 5 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, diagnosed with PTSD in service, and then got in trouble, got kicked out with an other than honorable. But he went to a VSO, and the VSO did submit the discharge upgrade or the character of discharge review application with the VA, and the VA pretty quickly came back and said, we agree, your service was honorable for purposes of VA benefits. So fortunately for that particular veteran, he started getting disability compensation not too long after his discharge, which was critical to him because he had very, very severe PTSD issues. But he had never applied for a discharge upgrade, so now we're representing him in that process of going to the Department of Defense to get the discharge upgraded. So it is 2 different pipelines.
And getting that discharge upgrade then gets him entitled to other benefits such as his GI Bill and access to GI loans and GI Bill loans and things like that, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And also, it's important in life for many of these veterans, because if you served for 10 years in the service, employers or prospective employers are going to often will want to see your DD 214. And if it says something bad in there, it can be difficult to get a job and to get going in terms of, restarting your life. So it's important in that regard as well.
I say, hey, Cliff, have you ever ordered your military record? I think we'd all like to see it.
No, I haven't. Oh, that's great. Okay, I'm going to do that. Okay.
Okay. Next time I'm down at the studios, we're going to go online, or maybe you've got Glenda there. She's the mistress of the internet there. And,
yeah, that's right. I love it. The mistress of the internet.
And Manny might be listening from home. I hope he's recovering nicely.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And I think we all got a mission. We're going to order Cliff's service history.
That'll be great.
Well, I know you got out with good paper, Cliff. I want to see where Cliff Kelly went. I think there's a few more interesting stories in there, Cliff.
Yeah, you're probably right. There's a lot of that's funny. A lot of people do a lot of things, but the upgrades, that's the important part, right?
Yeah, and Brent is being modest about the import of what he does there. And I'll tell you, and I've mentioned this, there's a gentleman named Chester who listens to you. He came back from Vietnam when I was deciding whether I could, my dad could take the training wheels off my Schwinn. And Chester was, he strung line, but he was put into a combat unit, and he was a young black guy from the West Side, and it was the late 60s, and his unit was led, let's say, not by the most open-minded individuals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they made life very difficult. He saw some awful things and came back into the middle of the riots, and he got out with bad paper and PTSD. He lived for decades on the periphery, Cliff. When I was at the clinic at John Marshall in Chicago, he was one of our early success stories. And it took years, 49 years after he came home, he finally got his discharge upgraded, finally got the VA benefits he was entitled to, finally got into the health care. 49 years.
49 years, wow.
Yeah, I'm older than I look.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing the math about when he came home, yeah. So it changed his life so that he's able to end on his feet.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you've done such a great job. I mean, it's wonderful that these sort of things can happen. And
Brent's being modest about the import of the work they're doing, but they're changing lives. Like that guy who came back. I mean, 6 deployments. Come on, one. There's you're probably going to come back okay. 2. By the time you're getting more than 2, you're standing a good chance of coming back with permanent and long-term issues.
I tell you, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because there are so many things going on now, and we don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to get into that. I'll be talking to you folks soon, but about another issue. I know you know what I'm speaking of, and we'll do that. But listen, Brian, Brent, thank you both. Appreciate you taking some time with us, coming up with just excellent information. We appreciate you. Okay, and we'll be talking to you both soon. And thank.